So yeah, it has been a very interesting couple of weeks for the vape industry with some pretty big announcements. We've got the disposable ban, we've got tax, we've had the tobacco and vapes bill, which has been introduced, and all those measures together look like they're going to shake up the industry significantly. So I think what I'm going to do during this video is I'm going to go through those three specific areas. I'm going to start with the disposable ban, and I'm going to give you my opinion on exactly some of the facts about that ban and how that is likely to affect the industry moving forward. Now, some of these points actually cross over. So the disposable ban, for example, tax and tobacco and vapes bill will all merge into each other as the year develops, which will result in those significant changes for the industry. But let's start with the disposal ban. So the timeline for that ban is the 1st of June 2025. It had previously been set at April 2025, and that's now changed. The devolved governments had actually announced it was going to be in April. But because of the change of government, that specific date has now moved, and that timeline has now moved to the 1st of June. There will be an effective sell-through period now from this point until the 4th of June for everybody to basically sell through those particular types of products. The measures have been put in place under the Environmental Protection Act, which is the overarching piece of legislation that is being used by all the devolved governments in order to be able to specifically target those products. Manufacturers and importers are now going to need to adapt. They're going to have to adapt the types of products that they put into the market because they have to ensure that they don't fall into this disposable product category. And one of the big questions that we always get is, what is a disposable product? If you look at the Environmental Protection Act, the way that a disposable product is defined is twofold. It's actually the phrase that's used in the EPA, the Environmental Protection Act, is rechargeable. And that phrase has caused quite a lot of confusion. And it's led to people thinking that actually my product, all it needs to be is rechargeable, and then it's not a disposable product. It's actually incorrect. The rechargeable definition talks about two key elements. It talks about the product having a rechargeable battery, which is the bit that makes sense and has caused the confusion. But it also mentions about a replaceable coil. So the two key elements for a product not to be disposable on the UK market is that it must be rechargeable, i.e., the battery must be able to be recharged, and the coil must be replaceable. And it's important to note as well, and there has been clarification, that actually the replaceable coil can also be part of a pod system. So as long as you're replacing that pod element, which contains the coil, therefore that is the replaceable coil element. So to fulfill that, as I say, just to reiterate, it's a rechargeable battery and a replaceable coil, which may be part of a closed or an open pod system. So let's now move on to the tax and excise duty announcement. So interestingly, we'd had a consultation period with HMRC and HM Treasury with regards to some outline proposals that they had put in place with regards to taxing vaping products. There was quite a lot of kickback on the consultation of that because that consultation was directly looking at nicotine strength within products and taxing according to that. They, interestingly, have listened to some of the feedback that they've had from the consultation. And now the proposed duty, and I say proposed, it will come through, is now a flat rate of £2.20 per 10 ml on a product. So that makes it far simpler for the industry to be able to manage the tax duty liability because it's applied to any product that's got e-liquid in it, regardless of its nicotine strength. Now, what I think the industry needs to understand is how is that type of excise duty applied. Those excise duties are applied generally at the point of manufacture. And in fact, the document does talk about the excise duty being applied at that point. When a product is manufactured, if, for example, you make 100,000 bottles of 10 ml liquid, you will immediately have a duty liability of £2.20 applied to every 10 mil of product that you've got. So as you could, quick maths there, it's £220,000 bill. And that is due immediately. If likewise, if you made 100,000 2 mil devices, you would immediately have a duty bill of £44,000 because you've manufactured them. It's finished product, and now the duty needs to be paid. The tax is due. Now, the timeline for this obviously is October 2026. So that now gives the industry a significant amount of time to prepare and to prepare themselves for how they are going to manage that tax. And there are a number of considerations that they need to take into consideration. So we talked about, for example, how the tax is applied at the manufacture and also at import. My bad. I should have mentioned that actually the tax is also due on importation. There is also highly likely, and it's going to be subject to consultation, tax labels, which are also going to have an additional cost applied to them. The changes that manufacturers are also going to have to make in line with this is they're going to have to ensure that they have got appropriate machinery for applying tax labels. They've got appropriate systems and processes in place to be able to track finished product and to be able to financially report appropriately to HMRC. And in addition to that, if they are wanting to negate the cash flow, they really only have one solution. And the consultation document talks about duty suspension. And everything within that consultation document steers very clearly for manufacturers to be able to suspend that duty by the use of a customs warehouse. Now, what do I mean by that? Once a product is manufactured, then the duty would be immediately due on that product unless it was moved into duty suspension. And the only way of putting a product into duty suspension is to have a licensed premises as a customs warehouse. Now, what that does is that allows you to manufacture products, move it into a specific area of your warehouse, which is being registered with HMRC as a customs warehouse, and then that duty becomes immediately suspended. And then the duty is only due on those products when they are removed from that particular area of your warehouse, which will be your customs warehouse specific area. It's a critical point that industry now needs to pick up on and prepare for that October 26 deadline. Because if they don't prepare for that, then it's highly likely that their cash flow will be impacted significantly. And you only have to look at some of the big players. I talked about 100,000 bottles earlier. Well, actually, if you look at 100,000 bottles, that's a tiny amount for many manufacturers to produce. Many of these manufacturers have got in excess of 3.5 million bottles on their shelves. And if you do a very quick calculation of your duty liability on that, it's significant. So they need to start preparing for this now, and they really do need to engage with ourselves as we have a consultant, that can provide these services to enable them to be handheld through that process of getting a customs warehouse implemented so that they don't have this massive cash flow issue moving forward. So how do manufacturers start to plan for this? Well, the first thing is that obviously you've got to engage with an appropriate consultant that can provide you the correct advice and guidance for this. It's not a simple process. Indeed, there are probably 35 processes and systems that need to be applied, and you will be inspected by HMRC to ensure that your standard of systems is up to spec. And you will be visited and you will be stock checked, and they will check that what you put in your application is absolutely correct. But, one of my favorite sayings is measure twice, cut once. And you need to do this now. You need to prepare now so that you are ready for this change and that you can manage your cash flow accordingly. Well, this is a significant challenge for many manufacturers, and it is absolutely doable. Cost wise, it's important to look at where that business is. But as a kind of a ballpark figure for how much this is going to cost them, I would say it's going to cost them anywhere between 10 and £15,000 to get through that process. What is needed is that a consultant needs to turn up. They need to do a detailed gap analysis and to have a look at what processes and systems are already in place, what can be adapted. They will also review, for example, the warehouse management systems that are in place and how they may be adapted to be able to cope with this duty and this reporting. And many of the large warehouse management systems actually have bolt ons that will enable you to do that. But look, this is not a simple process. This needs expert consultation and knowledge to be able to handhold people through it. And it will be significantly alien to a lot of businesses in the vape sector. Fortunately, in a previous role, I've been through this myself, and I understand exactly how it can be applied and how actually with the correct company helping you, it can be done quite easily. So the tobacco and vapes bill, which has been announced this week, is marks a significant change for the industry, and it can't be understated actually what significant change it is. It grants the Secretary of State the authority to make some significant changes with regards to vaping flavors, regards to vaping products. You know, in particular, the regulation of flavors, the regulation of flavor characteristics, displays, how products are displayed in store, how products are packaged. One of the key takeaways from that as well is licensing. And what I'll do is I'm just going to give you a quick run through of some of those key areas so that you can understand exactly the direction of travel that the government is going in with regards to compliance and this product category. Now, obviously, as I said, it's a huge document. It's 150 odd pages in there, and you need to take your time to go through it to extract the specific details with regards to vaping products. But the direction of travel that the government is trying to achieve is clearly to address youth access. That's their primary concern. And also the uptake of vaping products by people who have never smoked. And, at Arcus, for example, we have always said these products aren't for children, and that if you don't smoke, don't vape. We echo that position that the government has. However, the balancing act that the government has got to get now is that they've got to attempt to reduce youth vaping whilst making this product still attractive enough for former smokers so that we can continue to reduce smoking rates and affect positively the health of the nation. So let's start with flavors. As I said, the Tobacco and Vapes Bill grants the Secretary of State that authority to regulate flavors in vaping products. And specifically, the bill's looking at the regulation of flavors, and it does state this within the document, it may impose restrictions on the types of flavors permitted in vaping products. And this could include, for example, the ability to prohibit certain flavors or limit the concentration of specific flavoring substances. And that's quite a lead in, really, when you look at it, because I know there's been a significant amount of worry about the government taking very similar lines to some other European countries and saying, right, that's it now. You can only have, for example, tobacco and menthol flavors. My view is that reading between the lines on this, they're actually talking about limiting certain specific flavor types or flavor names that may be more attractive to children. So this is all open to consultation, by the way, and it's important that as an industry that you submit to that consultation and you submit how important flavors are to former smokers, as there is a significant amount of research out there that details that. They could, for example, go down this determining flavor characteristics, and the bill provides for the establishment of criteria to assess the flavor profile of vaping products. And that is primarily to ensure that products comply with the set of regulations or future regulations regarding permissible flavors. So it's to fight for. We've got to get ourselves in a position where we're very clear about the importance of flavors, but we've also got to be clear about the compounds and the ingredients that are in those specific products. And are they necessary, and are they actually safe for human consumption? And that's a key point, because I think what we will find is, and the indications are from this document, that we will be looking for a justification of why certain compounds, particularly new compounds, are being put into these products. And that alludes to the health and safety of these particular products. And it actually specifically talks about the health and safety of these products as well, and being able to provide risk assessments for those products. So I think you'll see immediately that the compliance profile of these products is raised up significantly. The direction of travel is very clear, that profile for compliance and actually being able to put a product onto the market is going to be significantly more detailed. I've not chosen the word difficult for a reason. It's because it needs to be more detailed to demonstrate that the product is as safe as possible for the consumer. Let's move on to display. And the Tobacco and Vapes Bill specifies that the following regarding the visibility and display of products. It talks about display restrictions. Now, retailers in England and Wales are subject to the regulations that will come out, and it may impose prohibitions or requirements on the limitations of displaying of vaping products. Now, we don't exactly know what that means at this point, and there's a great deal of fear within the industry about how that may be applied. For example, if it was applied in the same way as tobacco, and it was put behind the gantry, behind a shutter, that would have significant impact on the industry. And pretty much my personal opinion is that you would be handing over this product category to big tobacco, because a considerable amount of big tobacco companies actually own those gantries in convenience stores and FMCG. So therefore, they have quite a lot of control about what goes in those particular areas. So I think it's important that the display of products is moved likely behind the counter, but still on display, so that people can actually see what products are there and can make a choice. I think, moving them off the counter and away from sweets, for example, is a very sensible move. But as I said, this is all still open to consultation. So it's important that we um, comply with that consultation and engage with it, so that we can put our opinions and certified arguments across about why products and how they should be displayed. The regulations may also look to control the price of vaping, and that's been clear in the document. So it's talking about how products are displayed in a retail environment to limit their visibility, particularly to young audiences. But it's also talking about how products are promoted, 2-for-1 deals, for example, or discounts. Those are highly likely to be restricted moving forward. Any item that represents a vaping product intended for exchange at the point of sale are included in these display regulations. Restricting visual access in store is clearly something that is in the eye line and a target for the Secretary of State. Okay, so I think now it's important to move on to what they have positioned about packaging. Again, this is the bill is about giving power to the Secretary of State. And the bill talks about giving the Secretary of State authority to set rules for retail packaging of vaping products. And these rules may impose prohibitions and requirements or limitations on aspects of packaging, which could include the following things. So, the marking of packaging, how the use of branding and trademarks or logos. So we're likely to see, for example, the removal of cartoon character type logos, information and details provided on or with the packaging. They're looking at the manufacturers now providing far more information to the consumer and detailed information to the consumer. Appearance, the visual design of the packaging, how that may look. And for example, there has been some work with the British Standard Institute about youth appeal and about how a product could potentially be graded as youth appealing and how that is likely to be graded moving forward. The materials, the type of materials used in the packaging, for example, could be restricted. How the packaging feels to the touch, and the shape and size, the dimensions and the form of the packaging, the appearance, the visual design of the packaging, which is going to be critical moving forward. It's got to be viewed as not youth appealing. The materials, the type of materials used in that packaging, the texture, how it feels, size and shape, dimensions, form of the packaging, and the opening mechanism, how a package is opened, how brands are differentiated. It's all open now to consultation, and it's really important, as I say, and I keep reiterating, that we engage with that consultation so that our views as an industry are put across, so that we come up with sensible regulation that reduces the youth appeal, but at the same time keeps these products as appealing to former smokers. Now, one of the big aspects and one of the wins, I think, that the industry has seen from the tobacco and vapes bill is the clear inclusion of licensing in that bill. Licensing has been a long fought struggle for the industry. And many, like myself, see it as a critical key solution to put controls and mechanisms in place for our industry to control the illicit market. And as we know, the illicit market is significant. And by putting licensing, and as I've talked about previously, tax in, this puts significant pressure on the black market because it will make products, particularly if they put tax labels on these products, it will make products immediately distinguishable and immediately clear whether or not they are a licensed, not licensed, the word license is incorrect, whether or not they are a legal, legitimate product in the marketplace. So it's a key move forward for the industry, licensing and having that included with the tobacco and vapes bill. And hopefully they will adopt many of the principles and many of the points that we put in the licensing document that were presented to government that was led by Vape Club should have a significant effect moving forward on reducing these illegal products. And if we talk about licensing as well, just some of the detail that we can draw out from there is that there'll be a prohibition without a license. So it's prohibited to sell, display, or store tobacco and vaping products unless you have a license for your store. And that may include and is likely to include nicotine products as well, which is quite a highlight actually within tobacco and vapes, but it's a new category. And that's where nic pouches, for example, will fall in. And the requirement applies to individuals and premises as well. So you will find that individuals are likely to need it to be licensed as well as premises. So it's a great move forward. And there will be some significant offences and financial penalties which will come with this. So selling without a license, for example, or providing false information in license applications will breach current licensing conditions and are currently treated as offences. And penalties, including a potential forfeiture for that, are fines up to £2,500. And there are actually, if you're talking about tax avoidance, when we go back to tax, we're talking about tax fraud, unlimited fines, and prison sentence. So it's a significant move forward in terms of penalties for people that are prepared to sell illegal products. This is going to be reflected across, by the way, in Wales and Northern Ireland and the devolved governments. So We don't quite know what's going to happen in Scotland at the moment because they have their own registration system, but it's highly likely to be something that's very similar. So the bill, in essence, gives the government significant control and power, specifically licensing and enforcement mechanisms for the sale of distribution of tobacco and vape products within the UK. So yeah, there are going to be it is going to be a bit of an unnerving time, and there are significant things that are going to happen within the next short to medium term, and also up to October when the tax gets kicked in. If anybody wants to get in touch with us to discuss how they may prepare for this, particularly with regards to customs warehousing for dealing with the tax liability there, or particularly for our interpretations of how the tobacco and vapes bill may impact them, they can get in touch with us through the website where we've got a contact form, which is at arcuscompliance.com. And they can also email info@arcuscompliance.com. And there's a telephone number, which is at the top of the website, which I can't recite, but you can call that and ask for an appointment, and we'll gladly discuss these areas with you.